Hello and welcome to a Bonzolian video. I thought I made a video about this before, but I haven't. There's a website that a guy put up. His name is Eddie. It's not the same as listen to this Eddie, but it should be, because this fella put up this website years ago, and it stayed dormant for a long time. But then suddenly, I remember somebody saying, well, I think that guy died or something, but it's called The Garden Tapes. Now, as what many of us Led Zeppelin fans and Bonhamites know, you can see I have my iMac here. This is like my headquarters, man. When Jimmy Page put together The Song Remains the Same, okay, you have the movie and the soundtrack. The movie, they filmed a bunch of things with cameras, and of course Eddie Kramer was there in the Bearsville Mobile studio. Got a great sound. Gotta love Eddie Kramer. That's what that blue truck trailer is. And when you look at Madison Square Garden when they're first coming in or coming out and you see that blue trailer parked by the limousines, that's where Eddie Kramer's hanging out like, yeah. Well, a couple things. The original director, I think it was Joe Massot, he really didn't have experience. Was he the first guy? I think he was. With this, and the cameramen or women or people that he hired were like all filled, so they really kind of didn't really know what they were doing. So as it goes, they really didn't get a lot of the proper footage and continuation that they wanted to. Okay, you can read about that in the book. But anyway, what happened is then Jimmy Page then had to sort of edit the music accompanying what the best clips they had of them, and then they went and filmed some stuff at Shepperton Studios. You see some stuff where Bonham looks a little heavier. That's about a year later, maybe not quite a year later. But they're doing reshoots there, okay? And you can also tell those clips, too, where the overhead U-87s or U-67s that Eddie Kramer had up at the Madison Square Garden, the microphones themselves aren't in the holders. They just figure whatever. They probably thought they were too expensive or people wouldn't notice. So when you see, in fact, in the new Led Zeppelin book that Jimmy Page that Led Zeppelin put out, there's a picture of Bonham there where you see a camera on him on the stage at Madison Square Garden, but he's not on the stage. That's at Shepperton. You can see the microphone stands up there, just don't have the microphones or mic cables in them. It's pretty interesting. But anyway, so here we are, the Garden Tapes. So what you want to do is literally the Garden Tapes, which is Madison Square Garden. Now this guy, God love him, originally put it up, and it was just he was referring to the original 1976 movie and soundtrack. Well, as we know, Jimmy Page over the years has reissued, remasters and redos and a new package and the new this and the new this, 2007, and as time went by, he remastered like digitally stuff. But then what he started to do, probably with the ease of digital editing, he actually started editing what you'd hear. Okay, it was that you could do it a lot easier. A lot more of it on the soundtrack, but in the movie, the actual visual images can't be tampered with. Like, the movie is what it is, but he did go back and even change what you hear in the movie, okay? So anyway, what I want you to do, if you can, get a parallel window or a parallel tab and put in the Garden Tapes, okay? What is his name? Eddie Andrews? Sorry, Eddie, whoever put this together, it's terrific. You can really see exactly how they kind of did it. Because what happened is there does exist bootleg recordings of the three nights, although I think the first night is incomplete. And the second and third nights, remember they did 3 days at Madison Square Garden in 73 that they recorded. And so you can sort of tell by omission, somebody went through. I wouldn't be able to do it. The process would kill me. Of going through and realizing, like, okay, well, this part's obviously from the 27th, or this is from the 29th. So I'm on the right now, the Garden Tapes, a study of the Led Zeppelin film and album, The Song Remains the Same, by Eddie Edwards. Eddie Edwards should be worshipped. I just got this from Mark, a Bonzolian fan. This is my Academy Award for doing my best to assist in solving the 15-inch deep thermoglass bass drum syndrome. Remember, for the longest time, I said they were deeper. I did say for years and years that they were 16, just because I assumed, why would they be 15? Again, nobody told us about Carmine Apice's fetish for 15-inch. We're not going to get into that, but check this out. We need to, Mark, if you can send one of these to Eddie Edwards, he's the man. So check out the Garden Tapes, okay? So what they do, and he altered over the years. Like, when I first saw this site, I want to say I was still living in the city in Chicago, so it must have been 2001, or it must have been, I think, pretty soon after he put it up. And then again, it stayed dormant for a long time. But then suddenly out of nowhere, several years ago, he put on, the BBC. He goes through like the BBC sessions, Led Zeppelin DVD from 15 years ago, whatever. How the West Was Won, the Meridian Garden tapes, which I think is like later what they did for Ahmet Ertegun. So it's really, really neat. It's chock full of a bunch of technical. I mean, this is along the lines of the stuff we kind of like from Jimmy Page as far as when they did the records, but it's really, really neat. Okay, so. Here we go, and this is what I was saying. Remember, it stayed dormant for a long time, but here we go. The Garden Tapes was rewritten between November 2007 and February 2008 to cover The Song Remains the Same 2-disc special edition DVD and remastered and expanded soundtrack CD and to incorporate additional information about the original releases and correct a number of errors, omissions, and oversimplifications. So it's really, really neat. That's all kind of I want to say in this video. Check out the Garden Tapes. And he goes through all the... There is one thing, though, that I noticed that Eddie didn't mention. And now this is just something that I noticed. I didn't go through to persnicketize. I just happened to notice. In the last rendition, in the last version, in the last offering of The Song Remains the Same, like most modern DVD and soundtrack that Jimmy Page put out of The Song Remains the Same, Eddie doesn't mention it here, but in Whole Lotta Love, okay? Do you remember in Whole Lotta Love where it goes, love? Boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba da 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 bum ba ba. Jimmy Page got rid of that. He went through and either EQ'd it out or maybe took a little snippet from another night or whatever he did. And Eddie doesn't mention that here. Maybe he could if he watches this video. I mean, there's probably, seriously, this fella, Eddie Edwards, I wish there were more Eddie Edwards. He should be worshipped for doing this. This is really, really neat stuff, man. So just check it out. You can see it. You'll see a black page. Sort of what is that, teal, I guess? Whatever that color is. It's really, really neat, man. So I'll read a little bit of it. Introduction. So this is how he starts it. Somebody says, I love the live version of No Quarter. It blows the studio version away, a friend of mine said to me once, some time ago. Which live version are you talking about? I inquired. The one from The Song Remains the Same, of course, said my friend, slightly bemused by this question. He's never been the type to go in for collecting bootleg recordings. Oh, right, I said, but which version, the film or the album? At this point, my friend began to regret the foolishness of starting a conversation like this with me and decided to go away and find somebody normal to talk to. If you think you would, now this is our author, Eddie, if you think you would have had a similar reaction to that of my friend, then it might be a good idea for you to stop reading now. If, on the other hand, you're no more normal than I am, Moxie, get that, buddy, will ya? Thank you. Then welcome to the complete guide to the construction of Led Zeppelin's film and album, The Song Remains the Same, from the 3 concerts at Madison Square Garden, New York, on the 27th, 28th, and 29th of July, 1973. The Song Remains the Same consists of a selection of material from these 3 concerts. Every Led Zeppelin fan knows that. Well, not everyone. A lot of people kind of don't. There's a lot of newer fans now, but they did. Jimmy Page, cobbled together from the 3 nights for both these movie and the soundtrack, even the original 1976 one. In fact, my favorite, what really turned me on to, what really propelled me into total Led Zeppelindom is the live recording of No Quarter from the original 1976 soundtrack. By the grace of God, George said that too. George and I are soul brothers that way, that No Quarter from the original soundtrack, it's like 11 or 12 minutes. It's golden. It's beautiful. Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones and Bonham are just locked in, and Jimmy Page is playing the guitar like it's a saxophone. It's pretty much, I think, my favorite Led Zeppelin recording of a song, and it's just phenomenal. And again, even that was cobbled together from a couple of different nights. So Jimmy Page sort of arranged it after the fact. Okay? All right. So here we go. And he does say here, The Song Remains the Same is not live because it's full of overdubs, somebody says. And then Eddie says, there are a number of reasons why The Song Remains the Same cannot be classified as a genuine, straightforward presentation of a live concert. Studio dubbing is certainly among those reasons, but it is probably not the most significant. And, quote, full of overdubs would be definitely an exaggeration. On the original 1976 releases, overdubbing is restricted to some occasional minor tampering, usually with the vocals. No new studio overdubs were created for the 2007 releases, although some of the original overdubs were reused, and a different technique that could be termed cross-dubbing is employed quite extensively. Now, the cross-dubbing, like cross-fading, that's a digital sort of Pro Tools-y thing that Jimmy Page, I'm sure, was like, yeah! So when he was probably thrilled to go back through and redo stuff with that technique. Anyway, so this is really, really cool. Okay, you really should check it out. They have Rock and Roll, Celebration Day, Black Dog, Over the Hills and Far Away. The whole schmeal, man. He also has visuals and summary, which is nice. I don't remember visuals and summary back in the day. I think it's newer from after about 2007 when he did it. But yeah, and maybe if Eddie, if I did miss where you maybe do talk about that thing, the dotted boom, boom, but if you do talk about, you didn't talk about it in a whole lot of love specifically, but maybe you do talk about it later here. But any case, but yeah, it's really, really neat. Here. Oh my gosh, it's really, really neat. So please check it out. Hang on a quick sec. I want to see. Oh, and I just want to make a couple comments for myself. As time went by, especially after like like when How the West was won, it seemed Jimmy Page in subsequent remasterings or redoings of the song remains the same, tweaked Bonham's drum sounds to sound more like How the West was won. Diehard Zeppites and Bonhamites will know what I'm talking about. Listen, you can clearly hear the drum sound difference between like the latest version or versions of the song remains the same soundtrack and film versus the original. Okay. So yeah, so it's really, really neat. If you get a chance, do it if you can. Now here, I want to show everybody, this is the costume I've been wearing when I do the Kashmir shows. This is my Shoko shirt. Shoko's a sound company. I think they still exist. They used to do sound. Some smart dudes from Texas got the idea when they saw that shows were getting bigger and bigger, put together a sound for hire company, bought all this gear, and then rented it and their services out to tons of different bands. So, and I remember when I first looked on eBay back in the day, like 2001, for Shoko shirts, nobody, as far as I know, was making reissues at that time. But the originals, I remember they were going for like $60. I was like, God, that's a lot of money for that shirt. 8 years later, or 5 years later, when I looked on, because I was playing with this Presence Zeppelin tribute band for the first time, those same original Shoko shirts shot up to like $400, and they go for tons of money, whether it's Paul McCartney or Pete Townsend or whomever. So you can find this baby on eBay. It's a really cool shirt, Shoko sound. More videos on the way. George and I are going to see the Jason Bonham Led Zeppelin. It's not the Jason Bonham Led Zeppelin Experience anymore. He renamed it. But we're going to see that tomorrow night in Michigan. So we're going to drive and check that out. Wouldn't it be great if if George and I got to meet Jason Bonham? I have this fantasy that we meet him backstage, and he's like, I know you crazy guys. And we talk about it for a while. We're like, yeah. And we all fly back to England. We get back there, land at Heathrow, and we run right to the big, huge warehouse that has all Bonham stuff. We go through it for about 6 months. We're freaking out. We're having a great time. We stumble into where all the tapes are, all the studio kinds of tapes. We make a book like the Beatles book that explains, I've talked about this before, the complete Beatles recordings, where somebody went through and listened to all the individual tapes, pre-overdub and everything, and made sort of a diary of how they did it. Wouldn't it just be wonderful? Maybe I'd grab like his original pair of giant beat hats and slip them out and be like, all right, Jason, nice meeting you, buddy. Run out the door. So, but anyway, wouldn't that be just great? What if seriously if somebody could talk to Jason and we really put together, or somebody, a documentary about all Bonham's gear over the years? I mean, think about it, man. People would love it. People could do it with Jimmy Page's guitars too, and John Paul Jones and stuff. But Bonham's would be, I mean, think of the mystique. You know what I mean? Imagine me holding in my hand, like, this is the Superphonic that Achilles' Last Stand was recorded with, or Stairway to Heaven even. So, thank you for watching. More videos on the way very soon. And please subscribe if you haven't. Thank you very much.